This is Wurzburg.
You know, when I think of Christmas, I think of the Christmas market in Germany. It's so exciting. People come from everywhere. It's really a celebration of life. The Glühwein, the Bratwurst. Oh, mwah, love it.
Heartily welcome to Juliusspital Wine Estate, an amazing place in Wurzburg. The wine estate is part of a social foundation called Juliusspital, and we are very old. We are founded in the year 1576, and we still run a hospital, a nursing home, and what we're gonna see as next, a wine estate. I'm gonna tell you a bit about the tradition of Juliusspital Foundation, and this is a nice place because this is original out of the year 1576, and this art shows you what happened here and why we are founded. You see our founder, he is Julius Echter, and his first name gave the name to the foundation, Juliusspital. And he had the power of religion and the formal power in former times. And Juliusspital was founded for needy people, ill people, for education. And we do also have our church here in. But the most important thing for us in the wine estate is this bottle. It's called Boxbeutel, and it's the typical shape of the Franconian region bottle. Welcome in the underground of Juliusspital. It's the heart of our wine production here. It's our wooden barrels in our historical cellar. It's very old. It's the oldest cellar in Wurzburg, and it's 250 meters long and 220 barrels. The most famous things like Würzburger Stein, Eschandorfer Lump, and so on, they are here for the maturing and also for the spontaneous fermentation. They're lying here on their yeast and breathing through the pores of the wood. The barrels are from Germany. It's German oak, and we use them from 10 to 50, 60, 70 years. And sometimes we do have carvings in front of the barrels, and we use them on a new barrel as well. So if we can't hold on to the barrel, we keep the carvings. So we do have different times, carvings from other centuries. The oldest one I'm gonna show you next. I'm gonna show you one of the oldest carvings here in the cellar. It's from the beginning of the 19th century, and it shows more this Baroque world in former times. And these barrels were brought to America to a World Trade Fair. It was shipped and came back, fortunately. And you see here our cellar masters celebrating maybe the wine, maybe themselves. But the worthiest thing to me, we eat a lot of Bratwurst. It's a sausage, a special sausage here in the region. And you see here is the Bratwurst. And the wine matured here inside is typical a Silvaner. These barrels are with a volume from approximately 2,000 liters, and we mature the wine here for approximately 6 to 9 months on the yeast, and it came out more smooth, more balanced, and ready to drink maybe. Every barrel is different, and every barrel do have a different character. The volume is from the smallest one, 225 liters, to the next step, 1,000, and these bigger ones here are approximately 4,000 liters. And we do have Riesling in, Silvaner, mostly, and the longest time is Silvaner, because it doesn't live from acidity. It's more smooth on your tongue and full-bodied, and so it's better for the Silvaner to lay on the yeast so it becomes more balanced and bring out his heritage, where it is from which vineyard and which soil, terroir, we call this. Silvaner is, in comparison to other grape variety, not loud in his fruity notes. That's what I mean with elegant. It's not the loudest speaker in the room. So it remembered the pears and apples growing in the region. And yeah, it's not that high in acidity, it's not that crisp, but it's more smooth and balanced. Germany is mostly known for the grape variety Riesling, and our heart is beating for the grape variety Savannah. I believe that it's the Franconian identity, this grape variety. It's in comparison Riesling and Savannah. Riesling is more this exotic style, this exotic fruit, and Savannah is more home. It tastes like home. It's maybe honest, this wine. It's remembering pears and apples which are growing in the region. It's not that crisp, not high in acidity. It's more balanced and maybe more grounded on your tongue. So this is one of the newest carvings in our cellar out of the year 2000. It's for our we renewed our nursing home, and that's the story of the carving. So the elderly people and the needy people come into the Juliusspital. Here are our 3 rings in the weapon of arms, so you know it's Juliusspital. And we give the people free drinks and free meals and even free shoppen. This is our wine called in German. So we give them free wine, and let's see, they are so happy now, and maybe they feel even better and dancing and laughing, and maybe there's a little warning in it. Too much of Bacchus wine and you're going a bit crazy. Let's taste a wine we produce here in Juliusspital. It's one of our famous vineyards. It's in the city of Wurzburg, a very steep and south-faced vineyard called Wurzburger Stein.
Oh, that's a long one.
And the grape variety is, we're talking a lot about, it's Savannah.
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 Yes.
It's spontaneous fermented in the barrels we've seen, and it's matured a few months on the yeast inside of these barrels. And now we taste the vintage 2018, a very hot vintage.
But this is a very new wine.
It's a very new wine, yeah. We're drinking the white wines earlier than the red wines. So
they have to mature longer, the red wines.
The red wines have to mature longer in the barrels, but also a bit longer in the bottle at home. So.
Right. And are these in the steel barrels, the white wines? Are they in the steel, like this?
This one not. This
No.
have only seen wood. This is all, it's matured, and also the fermentation was in the barrels.
Oh.
But we do have other wines. They are not that high in quality. They are more crisp, and they should be drunken a bit earlier as well. You can store this wine for approximately 5 years or
Really?
6 years. 6 years, and so it becomes more balanced and more round on your tongue. But on the other hand, these nice fruity aromas, remembering apple and pears, goes a bit more ripe in the wine.
You know, I really love this wine cellar because it's very special, it's creative, it's a living museum. It's fantastic, it's original. I've never seen anything like this anywhere in the world. I've been everywhere. And I thought, wow, what a celebration of life. You know, you're really bringing all of the history together, you're bringing the artistry together, you're bringing the wines so that everyone can celebrate with the wines. And I will post to that.
Thank you very much, Prost.
Yes. You know, this, by the way, it's so pleasant on the tongue. And a very elegant wine. I mean, you can have this with fish, you can have it with pasta, you can have it with anything because it just works so well. You know, it's just a perfect thing to have at your dinner table and to share with family, because family is so important, especially here in Germany. And everybody gets together and they drink together and they have a wonderful time. It's a celebration of life.
Jon, you get it.
Prost!
Prost!
I'll drink to that.
I'm too.
Jon Haggins, The GlobeTrotter is like no other travel book in the world. When I think of travel, I think of friends from around the world. I've traveled to Malaysia, Thailand, India, everywhere. You're going to absolutely love the book. And the recipes, you will whet your appetite with these incredible aromatic recipes. Remember, my world is your world. So get up, get out, and travel. What an incredible morning here at the Residential Palace in Wurzburg. I am so excited because it has 361 rooms. What could be more marvelous than this? Welcome to Wurzburg.
Next, let's have a look at the fresco that you see right above my head. This is also still original, 100%. The colors, the statues, the ceiling, the whole shebang here. We're talking about a vaulted ceiling with more than 700 square meters. And it was also painted in the 18th century, middle of the 18th century, by a Venetian painter. His name was Giovanni Battista Tiepolo. And amazingly enough, it only took him less than 1 year, actually, 263 days to be precise. And he did all the work, of course, by himself. He had help. He brought his 2 teenage sons with him. But the real painting, that is really just the work of the Meister, as we say, of the master Tiepolo. And what did he paint? What you see on the ceiling? Well, we've got 4 sides above our heads, and on each and every side you've got a young lady, a woman, a princess in the center. And each of the women represents a continent, the 4 known continents of the 18th century. And you have to keep in mind, of course, what you see here is 18th century art, and there's just one purpose to it, and that is to glorify, of course, our sovereign, the Prince Bishop, and the continent of Europe, obviously. So we're going to have a look at each continent in turn, and it's not exactly, it has nothing to do with the truth of the 18th century, of what the real continent and the people and the culture was like, but of course only what the European point of view was back then. So we can start with the most important continent of all, and that was, well, guess who? That was Europe, of course, which is right above my head here. And you will also notice when you look at the fresco and the statues, how closely the painter and the man who did the sculptures and the stucco, how closely they worked together, Antoni Bossi and Tiepolo. You will notice, switching between 2D and 3D, that very often you can't really tell what is original. Is there really something sticking out of the ceiling? Is it just the painting? Is there shade? Is it just paint again? So this playing with your perception, fooling of your eyes, basically, that was all the rage in the 18th century, and that is just a lovely piece where you can really, really admire their art and their work. Lady Europe above our head, you see Lady Europe in the very center. Right next to here you have the Greek father of God Zeus, here depicted as a bull. And around Lady Europe you see many artists. That was, of course, that is what I mentioned earlier, that is the European way of thinking, of course. Europe sees herself back then as not only home of civilization, but home of the art also, hence all the artists around Lady Europe. And you can even see, if anyone's interested, what the artist himself, what Tiepolo looked like, because I think we call that a selfie today, and he painted himself into his very own fresco. It was a certain order of things, of course. So the perception was that the best continent of them all, that was us, that was Europe. And next came Asia, Lady Asia here to my right-hand side, to your left-hand side. And you see Lady Asia sitting on top of an elephant. That's the young woman with the blue skirt thingy sitting on an elephant. And what else do you see? And that is very important. Asia was seen as a rather civilized and knowledgeable country, and that is also depicted here in the fresco. So you can see one of the oldest alphabets in the world, for example, on a slab of stone coming from Asia. And you will see a pyramid in the corner in Asia. If you're wondering about this, if you're thinking, what on earth is the pyramid doing in Asia? Again, that was the thinking back then, the European thinking back then, that that Egypt was seen part of Asia, not Africa, as we see today. Now, my favorite part when you look at the fresco is when you look at the animals, of course, for a normal European person of that time, exotic animals like the elephant here in Asia, for example. You will notice that the details are not quite right. I mean, you all recognize, yes, it's an elephant, but when you look closely, my favorite part when you can see that rather nicely is look at the trunk, please. Look at the trunk of the elephant. Have you ever seen a trunk like this? I guess not. Why? Because it looks like a pig snout screwed on top of a garden hose. And also the ears, remember this is supposed to be an Asian elephant representing Asia, but when you look at the ears you will notice, whoops, there's something wrong. The ears are too small, they're bent the wrong way, so that means they belong to an African elephant actually, and not an Asian elephant. But what do you expect? Normal person, normal European person of the 18th century didn't know, of course, the details. Now, next in line would be Africa, which is to my left-hand side here. And Lady Africa is the young woman with the white scarf wrapped around her head, right next to a camel. And this is what I meant by European point of view, please. They didn't go and ask people of Asia or Africa, what do you think stands for your continent, for your culture, for your history, because we couldn't care less back then. We only show you what we Europeans are interested back then. And what is of interest to us when you think of Africa back then? Well, mostly goods. You will see tradesmen, you will see exotic animals, like you see a monkey, you can see an ostrich, you can see camels, and many tradesmen for spices, and all the stuff that Europe is keen on getting from Africa back then. But there's one missing, maybe you've noticed that already. Continent number 4 is America, of course. North and South America is right behind me. Lady America is the young woman with the feathery headdress, and I hope you can spot that there's something unusual about Lady America, especially when you keep in mind what we've just seen about Europe and Asia and Africa also, and then take a closer look at Lady America, the depiction of Lady America. You will notice there's something off. She looks, how to put that, well, rather underdressed, let's put it like that. There are no clothes, how shocking. And where is she sitting? That is even worse. Not only is she in the nude, but she's riding an alligator. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, this has nothing to do with the truth, of course. I'm pretty sure when this was painted here around 1752-ish that in America, North and South America, they were not all running stark naked through woods back then, but that is the European perception of America, the savage, uncivilized country, the continent. And you will also notice that it's a bit gloomier in America. When you talk about the colors, when you look at the colors, it's darker than in the other 3 continents. And there's a reason for all that gloominess, so to speak. When you look above Lady America in the very center of the ceiling, you have amidst gold and yellow color, you have a scantily clad young man hovering in the very center of the ceiling here. That is the god Apollo, the bringer of light and enlightenment. And he's sending out rays of sunshine, rays of enlightenment. And the hit, of course, full blast. Europe, thank you. We are bathing in the sunlight. And Asia, and of course, Africa also. But America, nope, no chance of any rays of sunshine, enlightenment to hit the poor North and South American continent. And especially you keep in mind, this fresco was painted around 1752, 1753, during the time when North America already had 4 universities, and still the perception back then was savage, wild, and cruel. You have to try to think like an 18th century person once you arrive here at the Residence Palace. And today we simply walk through the front door, of course, and take part in a guided tour or just snoop around on our own. But back then, of course, only the most important people were allowed to set foot into this magnificent palace. And these important people arrived, of course, by carriage. And they drove straight into the entrance hall here, into the so-called vestibule, and were driven around and then unloaded right in front of the grand staircase. My name is Christina Walter. I'm an official tour guide for the city of Wurzburg, and we're now standing in the 18th century palace, the former home of the Prince Bishops of Wurzburg here. A tiny, humble little abode of only 361 rooms, which we're going to have a look at. Wurzburg. When I say humble, I'm only jesting. We have 361 rooms inside. And we're going to have a look at the most important rooms. What you see behind me right now, for example, is the so-called Imperial Hall. And as the name tells you, that was mostly exclusively reserved for the German Emperor, should he decide to drop by. We're going also to have a look at the northern and southern imperial apartments. And of course, you certainly need to have a look at the really breathtaking and original, if I may add, 18th century fresco by Venetian painter Giovanni Battista Tiepolo. Now I just mentioned original. Unfortunately, thanks to a little accident in '45, a little bombing, now not every single piece here in the palace today is original. Most of the north and south thing were destroyed back then, but it was reconstructed and they did a fine job. It took them some years, from '62 until '87, but it's mostly split reconstructed. And of course, later we're also going to have a look at the gardens. And you will see we have beautiful Baroque gardens, and as was all the rage back then, of course, 3 types of landscape gardens. You always need to have an English landscape garden, a French one, and the highly romantic roses and all Italian landscape garden.
Chasing Wild Ass. Oh, it's not what you're thinking. It's a narrative of my travel around the world. I have interspersed photos and aromatic recipes, which allows you to dream, discover, and rediscover these great destinations around the world. The title of the book came about while we were chasing jackasses in Kutch Wild Ass Sanctuary in Gujarat, India. And I thought that was a great title for the book. This is food for the soul. Not only does it allow you to dream, it's adventure, it's history, it's culinary, it's culture, with a sense of humor to spice it up. Chasing Wild Ass is a celebration of life. You have to live each day as if it's your last. Remember, my world is your world, so get up, get out, and travel!
Fortress Marienburg and the old stone gate sits high on a hill with the best view of the town.
I'm here at Marienburg, and this is the oldest fortress gate in Wurzburg, and it's high on the hill. You're going to absolutely love all the history in Wurzburg.
The refuge castle stood on the site of the priest fortress Marienburg. What a beautiful, lavish land with rolling hills and palaces. River Gera runs through the town. The old main bridge is lined with statues. It's where everyone comes to share a glass of Glühwein in the evening as the sun is setting, and then continue to socialize after the sun goes down.
Jon Haggins, the GlobeTrotter, is like no other travel book in the world. When I think of travel, I think of friends from around the world. I've traveled to Malaysia, Thailand, India, everywhere. You're going to absolutely love the book. And the recipes, you will whet your appetite with these incredible aromatic recipes. Remember, my world is your world. So get up, get out, and travel!
I love the trams. The trams run through the town, and it's the best way to see the town. Wurzburg Christmas Market offers lots of bratwurst, Glühwein, and special crafted items. It's very festive and a social occasion. Even babies love Glühwein, especially the non-alcoholic Glühwein.
You know, when I think of Christmas, I think of the Christmas market in Germany. It's so exciting. People come from everywhere. It's really a celebration of life. The Glühwein, the Bratwurst. Oh, mwah, love it. Until next week, I'm Jon Haggins, the GlobeTrotter. Remember, get up, get out, and travel.
Look forward to seeing you next week for another colorful experience. So long for now.